Hello, Internet. I am Pastor Recoil, and welcome to my parish. Today is the 15th Sunday after Pentecost, and we're going to talk about it. Welcome to Pastor Recoil's Parish, where I talk about some things in the Bible that you may not have heard about in church, either because it's not quite appropriate for all audiences, or it just isn't something that's easy to talk about in a sermon. Today's readings for the 15th Sunday after Pentecost are Jeremiah 8:18 through 9:1, Psalm 79 1 through 9, 1 Timothy 2 1 through 7, and Luke 16 1 through 13. Today, we're going to talk about one of Jesus' weirdest parables. Now, this parable follows immediately after the parables of the lost sheep, coin, and sons. Jesus kind of takes his disciples aside and says to them, a rich guy had a manager, and the manager was embezzling from him. The rich guy pulls the manager into a meeting and says, "Sort it out or you're fired." The manager, because he knows he's been embezzling and knows he's going to get fired, does what he's good at. He continues to cheat his boss, but in doing so, wins friends for himself. He goes out and slashes people's debts. A debt of 100 jugs of olive oil becomes 50. A debt of 100 containers of wheat becomes 80, and so on. This, oddly enough, impresses his boss, and at the end of the parable, he is commended. So Jesus says, be like that crook, and use unjust wealth so that you are welcomed into eternal homes. What? Did Jesus just tell me to lie, cheat, and steal for the kingdom of God? That the good end of growing God's kingdom justifies whatever unjust means we use to accomplish the kingdom of God's goals? That doesn't sound right. And yet, I think it is exactly what Jesus is saying. The problem is that throughout Christian history, Christians have kind of misinterpreted what the kingdom of God means. And so lots of terrible things have been done in the name of God and God's kingdom. Things have been done that are terrible, that grow the influence of Christendom, spread the good news to people who don't want to hear it. Lots of harm and oppression have happened because of the good end of spreading Christianity that seemed to outweigh whatever those harms might have been. Jesus is saying, kind of, that the ends justify the means, but the end is not some kind of great earthly kingdom. The end, remember, is the kingdom of God, a kingdom in which all humans are loved, welcomed, accepted, cared for, and have enough. See, Jesus is not so much focused on growing power in this way. Jesus is saying that however unjustly wealth was gathered, using it for heavenly purposes is still good. And he's pretty much implying that acquiring wealth is inherently unjust. He keeps using this word that in Greek is mammon. We don't entirely know what its original meaning would have been and if there was any baggage associated with that word, but very quickly mammon came to be a symbol or even a personification of greed. There's an implication in mammon that it's talking about profit for the sake of profit, and that's bad, and that mammon is the worship of wealth as opposed to worshiping God. Now, for us in a capitalistic world, that sounds incredibly foreign. We honor those with great wealth, no matter how well they treat their workers. We honor those who bring in record profits, no matter who they stepped on to get there. But Jesus here is saying, if you're faithful with a little, you'll be faithful with a lot. If you're dishonest with a little, you'll be dishonest with a lot. If you've used what you have for your own benefit, you are not going to be trusted with real wealth. If you've not been faithful with what isn't yours, no one will give you something of your own. You can only serve God or greed. You cannot serve both. So while Jesus is saying it's okay to use dishonest wealth in the service of the kingdom of God, he's also saying the kingdom of God is all about helping other people. If you accumulated $1 billion and then gave half of it away in service of the poor, feeding the hungry, clothing the naked, healing the sick, and so on, that is a good action, no matter how the wealth was gained. Because I think what Jesus is getting at is that even if wealth is acquired through exploitation, which more and more it does seem like he's saying that all wealth is exploitative, if you use that wealth to the benefit of those who are exploited, that isn't going to happen without some kind of internal change. Look how few billionaires want to pay more in taxes, and in fact, most of them go out of their way to pay less in taxes. Look at how few of them give their money away to help the poor, even though it would cost them practically nothing to get rid of most of what they have. They don't want to, not really. And even those of us who aren't billionaires, even when we can afford to give a bit to help others, let's be honest, we don't do it either. I know I don't. And yes, for a lot of us, money is tight. It's hard to have extra to give to help someone else. But a lot of the times, I'd sooner buy something to make myself a little happier than donate it to try to make someone else a little happier. We've all bought into this idea that mammon, wealth, greed, profit, whatever you want to call it, is more important than our fellow humans. We can blame the system however much we want, and we can blame our own culture however much we want, but ultimately, that's on us. Jesus calls those who want to be his disciples to something different, though. To use the wealth that we have for the good of the kingdom of God, not for building more power or wealth for its own sake, but to heal the sick, to free the oppressed, to release the captive, and to proclaim good news to everyone, especially the poor. That's very different than what our world tells us to do, but that's the only way to properly use wealth in Jesus' mind. Not for profit, but to actually help the people who need help. So if you want to see more content like this, check out the links to my right, or click the logo below my face to subscribe so you'll know when my next video comes out. Thank you for watching, and take the time this week to love your neighbor as yourself, especially if you don't like them all that much.